If you're building or backing startups in health tech or AI, this is the conversation you didn't know you needed. You're about to hear seasoned investors and operators break down what actually makes a company fundable today and is not your tech, your deck, or your AI buzzwords. This room is filled a wide range of C to Series A investors, Medicaid fund managers, consumer health VCs, quantum and AI fund builders, FDA-cleared founders, LATAM commercialization experts, and healthcare operators with global scale. Stick around, because what they say next will either validate your strategy or expose a blind spot that's costing your traction.
Welcome to Provider's Edge, the podcast that helps healthcare entrepreneurs and innovators break down barriers and control their business, life, and future with valuable action steps. With me, your host, Sabrina Runbeck, a recovered clinician and a business deal catalyst. Let's rewrite the rules and create a positive social impact while increasing your profitability. Before we dive into today's expert conversation, I want to pause for a minute and talk directly to the innovators in the room, especially if you're preparing for a raise or aim to land a pivotal partnership this year. Your pitch isn't just a story, it's a strategy. And if you're still guessing what investors or decision makers want to hear, you're already behind. That's exactly why we built Pitch to Yes. We don't just critique your pitch, we co-create it with you. You will walk away with a persuasion scorecard and a written pitch that turns attention into action. Apply at pitchtoyes.com. Now let's dive into today's conversation.
Today's episode comes from our monthly Venture Vitality event, a private gathering of active investors, venture partners, accelerators, global fund managers, angel groups across Europe, US, Latin, and the Middle East. What you're about to hear is the heart of our conversation, a candid, unfiltered discussion on how founders can truly differentiate in an AI-saturated market. We go deep into why domain expertise matters more than ever, why partnerships and workflow integration are now make or break factors, how regulatory blind spots derail otherwise strong companies, and why wide and shallow startups are being replaced by the quote niche and deep operators who understand the real buyer, workflow, and value path. If you want access to rooms like this, join us at our next event at venturevitality.vc. Let's dive in.
How do you become more of a differentiator in the space?
So with startups building AI agents or maybe other AI-driven models to improve efficiency or integrate better, reduce physician burnout, whatever the use case may be. My comment is that in addition to building the necessary partnerships, that there is a need for really understanding the domain. That comes from, of course, asking the right questions to your partners. But I think that's a necessary differentiator in my mind.
Yeah.
Which oftentimes is overlooked, right? The focus is on building sort of, the engineering aspect and perhaps the use case, but not necessarily understanding the domain well enough.
I believe 100% domain knowledge is absolutely necessary. Having worked with startups at the Founders Institute, we get a lot of people who building AI agents, not AI agents, but AI tools. And It's a common thread. They don't have the background. They don't have the intricate knowledge to really make it viable for their particular go-to-market or their customer. And I think going back to having that person on the team for whatever reason, whether it's a personal story that became a passion project, and we all have those in healthcare, tons of med tech startups are started by people who close family member or themselves had an illness or something that could not be solved by what was available today. Or it's on the professional side where there's someone that is spending time doing a ridiculous amount of things that has nothing to do with what their actual function or mission should be. And so they need AI to alleviate that. And so I think those two areas will become very vital for startups moving on. YC Combinator kind of preaches this as even before AI became a thing. And I think AI is just going to magnify the need for like the industry expert and really the nuanced.
And also differentiator to me, when I'm wearing my media and marketing hat, is actually a lot of people doesn't have a minimal sellable product. So they haven't gone enough to the conversation with individual end users or entities that can buy that product or service. We've seen that plenty. Like we actually go in to do an entire overhaul what that business is, why they're not raising the right capital, why there should be revenue positive, but there's so much delay. Typically is that when we are asking what is that ideal one type of ICP you're going after, not saying, oh, we're going to go after private practices and hospital and payer and employers and blah, blah, blah. Like it become too crazy because each of those domain has a different approach to find these, to create awareness, to engage with them. And what we are keep saying this the entire time is the right partnership leading to the right conversation. So I believe the initial downfall for standing out is they haven't done enough research for that primary ICP to getting back to why they would even have any interest in that product or service. Who's the actual end users? Is it clinicians? Is it patient? Is it admin? Who's actually adopting these tools to make their life better, easier, better outcome, whatever that is. Sometimes from the get-go is those messages are not clear. So when people become too generalized, then they're just listing and rambling things off. You're not really seeing the differentiator at all. It's not actually about they have all these experts on their team. You can't even get to the message of what the benefit and who can benefit.
What you're touching upon, Deb, is relevant not only in life sciences, but in pretty much everything these days, which is you can't be wide and shallow anymore. You have to be narrow and very, very deep. And the companies that you're looking in from an investment standpoint and the ones that are implementing AI, the biggest thing for AI is the data set that it's working off of. And proprietary data is so important. And in the life sciences space, ethics and considering regulation and everything is going to be increasingly under the microscope, making sure the companies are highly focused on ethics with how they're using the data is going to be critically important because we're going to see a lot of change when AI is moving faster than regulation and things are being released that maybe shouldn't yet be released, especially in this space. From a portfolio standpoint, a lot of you have companies in your portfolio right now. Even more important than your investments you're analyzing, the ones that you've already made, give a really hard look at their business models because we're seeing companies like, for instance, Salesforce, which is a $240 billion market cap. They're down 25, 30%. They sell by the seat. It's CRM based. We already know that automation and AI is going to replace the need for so many people in the office space. That's a business model that all of a sudden, going into the year, they're a $300-something billion company, and they're facing being obsolete in the next couple of years. And how do they pivot at being such a big company is going to be the story of their future. So think about the companies you have. This is going to be a time where exits probably should be on the forefront, and mergers should be on the forefront of a lot of companies' minds. And we're probably going to see a lot more of that than IPOs over the next couple of years.
For investors and also for founders, but also for accelerators, it's very important to know what you don't know, like to know where your knowledge ends and to know when when to go find somebody who does have that subject expertise. I'm part of the accelerator, like advisory panel for an accelerator, and they let in somebody to the accelerator that a company doing basically the same thing literally got smacked down by the FDA this summer for doing the exact same thing, providing medical advice when they're not clear to do so. And so it's like, okay, well, why? Like, did nobody like think to look through this, And so realizing kind of where your competence ends and when to kind of develop an expert network or rely on an expert network to say, hey, can you give me a gut check on this? I think one thing in particular I've seen is a number in healthcare is a number of founders being like, oh, well, insurance will pay for it. Okay. Like, oh, we're going to use this particular code. And there's one of our people in our network at MedStarter. Her name's Rosemary, and she's amazing. And I'm happy to introduce anybody who would like to talk to her. But she's very, very good at this. And, I've ran past about 10 startups past her, and she's like, actually, no, that's not how any of this works. They're very wrong. Or they're like, oh, we're going to get a new code or what have you. The funding challenge of, oh, I'm building, even if somebody comes to me and is like, I got the cure for cancer and health insurance is going to pay for it. Maybe, but I think that's kind of dangerous too.
I think it taps back to what I was saying, what Jess is saying, right? Like, it's who's using it, who's paying for it, how are we using it, what is the actual niche, right?
Yeah, no, I fully agree with the discussion. I think a lot of the founders that I'm meeting as well, they're not clear on their business model and how to even generate money, with their software as a service or AI solution that they're proposing. So it's exactly what Jasper was mentioning, right? I think most founders, they're focusing on the tech or on the solution rather than on the customer and on what problem they're solving. And even if you have the greatest tech, you still need to actually convince healthcare professionals to change using your solution, right? So there's a lot of change management needed. So if you're not early on incorporating, these customers, these insights from day one that you're designing it, even if the tech is great and then you start rolling it out, you will have a lot of resistance from your end users because they don't see the value. They don't see, how it integrates in their workflow, because there's a lot of workflows in the hospitals, in the medical world, right, that you have to take into account. So also integrating, I guess, your solution into their workflow, the existing workflows that are already there, is very important. If you have a standalone solution and they have to download it and add it and it doesn't integrate with their current workflows that they're using already, why would they do that extra work, right? Why would they go the extra mile, spending a lot of time in using that solution on top of their existing software and infrastructure that they already have, if it takes them more time, right? So it should be integrated into their workflow. So it makes their life easier. It's fully, integrated and user-friendly. There's no resistance when you're, rolling out these type of solutions. So yeah, great discussion so far. Thank you for all the insights.
And I think the integration part is the one that I'm pushing so much, right? Because usually it gets to the clinicians, be like, hey, we build something, we sell for you, go use it. And then you're like, we're already busy using all these tools, Epic, blah, 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 right? Like a voice command. And now you're telling me that I'm adding another thing on. So it becomes more of a burden instead of help. So we say usually any company has 3 pillars. Your intellectual property, which too many people just spend so much time on. And then they're not really thinking about how is that going to have the legal impact, financial impact, workflow impact. And then it's your social capital, is everything that everyone has been chiming in. Is who are you selling to? How are you approaching that? Why is that niche market actually care about doing that? If it's not making things cheaper, easier, better outcome, why would they even entertain the idea? And that is human capital. In a sense, is who's leading the change, right? A big shining star on the company is never going to be truly beneficial. That person burns out, everything collapses. So what's the people infrastructure behind it to actually make things work? And how do you create the best UX, right? Like that entire user experience is based on the people who you engage with internally and externally to make sure people will actually adapt. So when it comes to adoption issue, I always believe is they don't have enough front end conversation to truly figure out who are the people they need to niche down.
Yeah, a couple things. So I spent most of my career developing software and architecting software, and I definitely developers get a bad rap because Business people always say we don't develop things that they actually ask for, and that is a huge problem across industries. But what I really want to get at is that all founders need to develop things that solve a problem. Because if you're not developing something that solves a problem, there's a huge probability that it won't be adopted. But let me just shift for a quick moment to kind of expound upon what I said earlier about quantum capabilities that will affect every industry, including the medical industry. So what does that look like? That looks like instead of it taking years to develop new drugs and having a wet lab, you won't need a wet lab. You can literally shorten the time to a matter of months because of quantum capabilities. It's removing two fundamental constraints that people have on every project. One is time, and the other one is storage space. And quantum capabilities drastically reduces both, which is going to revamp every industry, every company from top to bottom. And give you an example, I'm working with a founder who can identify every protein. It can identify RNA. I was just reading some of the research. I don't have a background in medicine per se, but I can tell you that they've mathematically been able to model RNA folding. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that. In mathematically being able to do that, they have done it with algebra, right? I'll just read really quickly. The algebraic approach to RNA folding represents more than a computational improvement. It's a fundamental shift in how we understand biological structure. By recognizing that nature follows algebraic rules rather than minimizing complex energy functions, we now have new avenues for understanding disease-causing mutations, designing therapeutic RNAs, engineering biological systems, and unifying physics and biology through algebra. So that's one thing. Another thing I just wanted to mention to you, there's something called the Universal Life Bank, and its main purpose, I think, is for citizens will receive tokenized health credits, preventive care, behavioral improvements, and community service and empowerment will be monitored and rewarded.
Real quick, if you are a founder building within healthcare solutions of women's health, mental health, age tech, longevity, chronic disease, then we built Capital Engine for you. We don't just get you in the room. We make sure you're ready to own it. Our team vets the right investors and potential C-suite operators to help you validate product, run pilot trials, and scale your next venture partner. Some founders get so much investor interest, they ask us to slow it down. And whether it takes 2 months or 2 years, we stay with you until your raise is closed. With expert advisors who built and exited healthcare companies themselves. Apply now at capitalengine.vc and let's get to work. Thank you for tuning in to Provider's Edge podcast. We hope you enjoy our latest episode and found the insights and tips helpful. We'd love to hear your feedback on the show and learn what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. So please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform and let us know what you think. Your feedback is essential to help us improve the show and provide you with the content you need to take your healthcare business to the next level. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.